Ever since I've known him, he's been legendary. Partly in the sense that he has been talked about, but more in the sense that his crazed self-belief distorts reality. He forces you to hold him in the same awe in which he holds himself. No one else would breezily offer to give his own best man speech, but from no one else would the offer sound more reasonable. Chris's name first reached my ears at Ripon Grammar School when we were 12 or so, and in the same year but different forms. He was causing a stir at the Christian Club, of all places, singing his own songs and accompanying himself on the guitar. It's possible that he was, in those days, an innocent and pious child, a sort of Aled Jones with a Stratocaster. But it's also possible that he was contemplating a career as a charismatic cult leader and was testing the waters. A few years later, he had turned to movie making. I missed out on appearing in most of his films because he would pick on people in his own form. Chris would write, star, direct, and publicise. His friends would be given the job of making him look good. His enemies would be given the job of being beaten up in front of the camera and thrown in a lake. It says something for the charm of the man that they still turned up for filming. But it probably says more for Mrs. Snowden's cooking. I was dragged into Chris's orbit sometime in the 5th form, I think, when he found out I could play bass guitar. My first visit to Trinity Farm was to play in a nightclub scene he was filming. The story revolved around Chris playing enormously long guitar solos and acting smart at the expense of his willing dupes. I'd never been to a nightclub, and neither had Chris. But he had seen Purple Rain and realised that the only way in which it could be improved was if it starred him. I was impressed. And next year we decided to form a band. I liked music. I liked the early Beatles albums my parents had around the house, and I liked Iron Maiden. But I was beginning to notice that there weren't any girls in Iron Maiden, or at their concerts. I was ripe for a teenage musical epiphany, and Chris was happy to help out. He didn't like the Beatles, he worshipped them, and would spend hours in the school library adoring a Beatles encyclopedia as if it were the Lindisfarne Gospels. He taught me which Beatle was which, lent me the White Album, and blew my mind. I tried to draw the line at Prince, but girls liked print. And when a girl lent me Diamonds and Pearls, I gave up drawing the line and got funky. When you see my dancing this evening, that's Chris's fault. Our band played Chris's songs and cover versions of Guns N' Roses cover versions. A third of our songs were third hand, but Chris's guitar solos were all his own. Indeed, they were almost all of our albums. He paid David to make him a guitar like Prince's, and so it was, from a distance, and if you didn't plug it into an amplifier. Chris's dad got us a gig at Wetherby Prison, where our audience was polite. When we hauled our gear out of the hall, we found that the rest of the prisoners, the ones who hadn't been sedated for the afternoon, had covered our car with pot noodles. We were living the rock and roll lifestyle. But it was time to break up the band. The drummer and I were going to university, while Chris heard the siren call of vivisection and went to work for Huntington Life Sciences to do unspeakable things to animals for a year.